so we're going to call the November 26th, 2018 WPCA meeting to order at 7:18 p.m. With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of October 22nd.
So moved.
By Ms. Dancho. Seconded by Mr. Harden. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion passes. What do we have? 7-0. 8-0. Sorry, I lied about that one. All right. Item number 3, town engineer report. Mr. Casey.
So not a whole lot of changes from the last couple months. The I&I capacity project, the sewer system evaluation survey is continuing. We've wrapped up most of the initial inspections as we reported last month, but in the meantime, the engineer is looking through all the data and trying to distill out of that what the results are and what our recommendation will be for further action.
Okay.
We did talk about doing the additional smoke testing in lieu of house-to-house inspections. So the engineer's looking at that yet, but they haven't figured out exactly how to make that work with the contract and the DEP grant yet. So we'll report on that again. This 6 pump station project, as you recall from last month, the DEP is considering extending the amount that they're offering to the towns for these types of projects. We were limited prior to $4 million per year, and if they lift that to what we expect will be our request to do 5 pump stations as one project, we'll see some benefits from economies of scale during construction and inspection, and also the savings that we would have from inflation on the construction costs. If we were to do it earlier rather than spread it out over a period of years, we feel that that would be the better way to go. And I think last time the WPCA was going to think more on it. In the meantime, we have talked to the DEP, and they are doing the paperwork as we speak to extend that amount. We haven't gotten the paperwork back yet, but we expect that soon we will. And if the WPCA is inclined, we would like to have the engineers start to work on putting the package together as one package as soon as we hear from the DEP. And I would ask the WPCA to consider that.
Okay. So let's take a couple minutes on that, Mr. Casey, if you don't mind. So for all of you who are here, we just passed out a debt projection, WPCA debt projection that Mr. Wahlberg was kind enough to put together. And Jay, if you wouldn't mind, just come to the podium for a quick question for you. I know you and I have spoken about this at length along with John Casey. I feel it's a good opportunity for the town, for the ratepayers going forward. 2% 20-year note with 20% of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Casey, 20% being a grant?
No, it will not be grant.
Will not be.
For originally when we started this project,
right,
it was a grant program. They took that, they held that back.
Okay.
Unless they're making changes, we haven't heard that they're putting it back. So at this point, it's a 2% loan for the entire project.
Okay, thank you. Jay, if you care to comment, just your thoughts on this being where it is in current interest rate environment, inflation, so on and so forth.
Yes, I can only speak to the board. Basically, at 2%, that's probably about the best rate you can get for financing this type of construction. So unfortunately, we don't have the 20%. As John mentioned, may come back. At this point here, it's off the table. We're still at 2%. Having the construction done in today's cost structure and expense structure, I think is probably the board's best option at this point here to get everything done up to date and finance it over the 20-year period. I would firmly recommend that.
And based off of this debt projection, the first payment wouldn't come on until the fiscal year 2021, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Casey, do you have any other comments on or thoughts on this? I know we've spoken at length.
No, I think besides the financing rate, we are going into a period of higher interest rate, we would assume, and also the economies of scale would be the cost savings.
I would agree. Any other questions for Jay? Greg? Sure, Mr. Gann. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. This would not preclude us from getting any future grants, whether it's state or federal. We're not attorneys, but maybe a new program will come up from FEMA that'll say, hey, you can get a grant to do flood resiliency.
Yeah, I would imagine if we could do
Still
less work.
apply.
Do less work if we got a grant from, say, a federal infrastructure funding that doesn't exist today.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Just one last comment. I think any investment we make in the town's infrastructure should facilitate commercial interest. You know, people that want to put up buildings in the town of Stratford would be more confident if our roads and our infrastructure was supportive of those investments. So this is a good step forward.
Any other questions or comments? The only thing I'll add is we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of months talking and discussing this, and Ty and Bond has been excellent in terms of communication with DEP, and I want to thank them for this. You know, every month we have a WPCA meeting. It seems to be, for no fault of anyone's, there's something breaking on one of the pump stations. As we see here tonight, we have to look for some more capital. So this is really going to help the town move forward and try to get it on the right path in terms of Greg's point with the infrastructure. So I'm very supportive of it. Greg?
One question for Jay. This $1.2 million a year, can we guesstimate what it would cost for the commercial and the residential? How would it impact the rates?
I did a 10-year projection on that, or I'm working on a 10-year projection for the board. Basically, the $1.2 million, the way it works, it's like a home mortgage. Okay, it's consistent every year, so that gives you a levelized debt service. Basically, I am working with Chris on a 10-year projected outcome of how this is going to impact the rates. Commercial and residential, I'm not sure on that. That's a mix. I wouldn't know, but certainly I could tell you what the total revenue would have to be to support something of that nature.
Just heuristically, if the WPCA is a $10 million operation, so the rates may have to go up by 10%, maybe $40 a year to support this. But that's an investment for predictable, that's all. It was just a guess.
Yeah, I would say you have to figure not only that, Greg, you also have to figure the increase in cost and labor and everything else. So that's a portion of that. But reasonably stated, yeah, it's about 10 million. It will affect you about 10%. Okay. Now keep in mind that when you do your rate study, it's based on depreciation and not the debt service. Okay, that's the way it should be done, and that will probably moderate that somewhat, because that's over 30 years, where this debt service is over 20.
Another question? That's a good point, Jay. The investments that we're making, if just in the pumps themselves, their lifespan is 20 years?
30 years. Normally on sewer projects, it's 30 years. Financing is 20, so you do have a longer span on that for rate setting.
That's good. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. So, Mr. Casey, would you like to Should we have an additional motion tonight to, I know they're already moving forward with discussing this with DEEP in terms of coming back to see how much they're willing to offer the town, excuse me, the WPCA. Would you like to have a motion that allows the town engineer to discuss as soon as possible, being that we're getting into the holiday season, the end of the year? Would that be helpful or more efficient to you?
Yes, we would just like some direction that when the funding, whatever the level of funding is, and we expect it to be what we want, which is 20 million, that we would then prepare the bid package for one $20 million project.
Okay, so I'll entertain that motion that Mr. Casey just put forward in terms of allowing the town engineer to move forward as stated. Motion made by Mr. Perillo. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Harden, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Casey. If you want to continue with the sewer lining.
We're at the tail end of our lining project. There's a couple of sewer repairs that we had to do before we could finish the lining. We expect that to be completed this month. The lining probably could be this month or next month. And then we'll be done with that project, which is basically a 2-year project we've been working on. Then we'll be looking to propose a new round of sewer improvements, which will be coordinated with what we're finding in the SES project right now with tie bond and any other items that we could find that we're having a problem in town. We'll put together a list for proposed projects for next year.
Understood. And coastal resiliency, anything on that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I just wanted to update you that we had proposed a coastal resiliency project. We had applied for a pre-disaster mitigation grant from FEMA. We put that in last year. We did not win that award. It's a competitive grant against the whole country, but it's still in the system, and they are currently reviewing it again for this coming year. So if we get that grant, we asked for $2.7 million, and if we get awarded with that, we'll want to get started with that project, but there will be a commitment to fund the balance of it from the WPCA funds as we're proposing in the capital plan.
Do they give you an estimated time frame on when they let us know, or if we got it or not?
I would assume be after the first of the year.
Okay.
Not sure when. Probably by March, maybe. Thank
you. Any questions for Mr. Casey? Nope. Hearing none. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Mr. Hyde, how are you?
Very well. Good evening. The WPCA, most of it's good. As your reports show you, the flows are up just under 3 million gallons a day for the month of October. Our water temperature's dropping. Our nitrogen released during August averaged 170 pounds a day, which is about half of the daily limit. So we're doing well there. Our UV system, the upgrade, the live testing is underway. At this time, 1/3 to 1/2 of the tubes are running at 80%. For the last 2 years, we had to run the full gamut at 100% because we couldn't monitor it and see what was going on. And so we're cutting down on the light bill a tad there. We're about 90% done, 95% done with this project. At this point, there's a couple of things we need to talk to them about. Some of the cabinets with the upgraded equipment get hot during the hot weather, and we replaced some air conditioning compressors to cool them and so forth. They're thinking that they were aged, and the weather cooled off before we were sure that we had that resolved. So we'll be extending part of this into next year when it gets hot out again. Additionally, there's some of the readings that we are receiving now, although they're much better than they were. Some of them are fluctuating more than we like, and we're going to see if we can get a little bit more control out of them. But we've actually got a meeting with them this coming Monday with Suez. Pump station maintenance. 6 pumps failed during the month of October. Riders Lane Pump 3 was returned to service in November on the 14th. A flight pump was installed at Oak Bluff and is performing well as of 11/15. Second pump at Oak Bluff will be removed and inspected. Actually, last week it should have been pulled. The pump for Access Road was rebuilt and returned on 11/15 also. Peck's Mill lost a pump. They're larger pumps. Those ones last month were $10,000 repairs. This is a larger pump station, larger pumps. I got it quoted at $25,000. We had them look around to find out if we could use some other than OEM equipment on it. There wasn't any real savings there, so we're back at the $25,000 that we're gonna have to find to repair this pump. And that's on tonight's agenda to get that approved. I'll be able to pull some of it. I'll have to move a little bit of money around, but we'll be able to find that.
Tom, if I can interrupt for 1 second, it has to do with your point. Is Peck's Mill at the top of our list when we drafted of those 5 pump stations?
Yeah, Riders was at the very top because we could implement it quickly, and then Peck's Mill was right behind that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Tom, thank you.
That's quite all right. And both sludge pumps from the gravity belt thickener are showing signs of failing at this time. I'm just giving you a heads up on that. I don't have any costs put together yet, what have you, but I'm sure we will be talking about them over the next month or two. Biofilter and odor complaint resolution. I'm still waiting. I haven't gotten any responses. They're putting the report together at this point. I've put a couple of calls into them. I was going to today, but ran out of time. And the biofilter rehab itself is complete at this time. We've had all the chips removed and put in, and it's performing well. The cold weather, we're starting to get some ice issues. We're trying to address them ahead of it instead of behind it this time around. Fine bubble aeration. We had these aeration stones tested to see if they could be cleaned or not. We got a response that they can be cleaned. We've got to develop and evaluate, do a cost analysis on what's going to be more effective. Cleaning these, you can clean them once or twice. Each time you get a less efficient use out of them. I haven't gotten far enough into the report to find out whether they're worth saving or there's a replacement with a rubber membrane which has less failure to it, that it may be more cost effective to just replace the system at this time. I will get back to you on that for the next meeting. In the meantime, the aeration is performing good enough to continue. Headworks bar rack. It needs all new bushings. One of our racks got to the point where the rake gets off kilter and the bushings are worn, gets off kilter and jams and stalls and won't operate properly, so we're down to one rake. We ordered the replacement parts and we have a gentleman starting tomorrow to replace those. Backup power transfer gear. This is related to our generator backup system. We've been having some issues in there. There's some relays to make sure that the generator, when the power goes out, converts. Not only fires up, but actually converts into running the plant. And the switch gear in there has some issues. We discovered that lightning hit a pole just outside of our plant, and we lost one of the legs. There's 3 legs to the power going into our plant. We lost one of them, and it appears that if we lose leg 1 or leg 3, the generator starts, but if we lose leg 2, the generator won't start. And we're not sure if that was a design failure, whether it's an equipment failure. To address it, we need to have UI come in and shut off one leg at a time. We've signed an agreement with them, and at this point we're scheduling an opportunity to do that testing. In the meantime, we are spending some significant money on overtime. We have to have a electrician on site in case of failure to hit the switch manually. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's probably running us $20,000 a week. So we're on top of it the best we can, but it's going to be a little costly. Other than that, effluent pump number 1, a water seal failure. We rebuilt the 3 effluent pumps going out of the plant. Almost immediately we had a seal fail. They repaired it. It has failed again. We're looking inside. It appears that we may have a bushing failing within that pump. Actually, there's a series of 4 bushings, 3 or 4 rubber bushings within that pump, and we may be having a failure issue within them. We're still evaluating, and we'll get back on that next month. That pretty well covers it.
Okay, so before we get to the repair request, are there any other questions other than the repair request for Mr. Hyde? Yes, Mr. Ken.
Hi, Tom. The power transfer gear and the 3 legs, the plant operates on 1 leg and then there's 2 backups, or do you need more than 1?
I'm not an electrician, but you start working from 120 to 240. To get to 240, you have to put 2 legs together. And beyond that, now we're talking up in the 14.6 range, 14,000, 13.6, I forgot the number.
Okay, so
But each leg is a multiplier, if you will.
so we need at least 2 operational all the time.
3.
Okay. And if 1 goes down, then that's when the backup
That
kicks in.
should trip the system and cause it to, cause the generator to take over and give us all 3 legs.
In the overtime for the licensed electrician, did you say 20,000, the cost per month? Or,
It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Over $100 an hour. It's, I don't want to put the
okay.
exact number in the air.
And UI will get this, they're gonna respond promptly. We,
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Tom.
We've got an agreement at this point, and they are just looking to pull the people together, the opportunity together to come in. And at the same time, I'm sorry, UI, we're also going to have Joe Palmari of Gentech and a group from SNEAT, who has been helping us, which is Southern New England Electrical Testing. And we'll be going in and looking for, trying to identify the issues.
thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. So we are looking for a motion for a $25,000 authorization to repair the Pex Mill Pump Station, and I'll entertain that. By Mr. Connor. Do I have a second by Mr. Perillo? Any discussion further on that item? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Hyde.
Thank you.
Item number 5, old business, table items, seeing none. We're going to move to item number 6, new business, schedule of meetings for 2019. Same as last year. Those have been published? Till we'll make the approval tonight then. Okay. So do we have to vote on that, Carol? Okay. We'll read it, and we'll read it in that the schedule for meeting for 2019 will be the same schedule as 2018, being that the meeting will immediately follow the ordinance meeting. All right. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. By Mr. Connor, second by Mr. Perillo. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys.